First, my thoughts at the end of day 42. Can you believe it? America in shutdown. Now, many of you are probably feeling kind of like I'm feeling. It's a weird feeling, isn't it? I mean, it's horrible. You feel like all the people who suffered out there. You're also living in kind of a time warp. Because you think back, like in the pre-COVID days, seems like kind of a long time ago in a way, you could do things like drive to visit your friends, or maybe stop in to see your parents or a relative. You might have dropped your child off at school, or you could go out on a Saturday night, maybe go to a ball game, maybe go to dinner. Now, in the pre-COVID world, you didn't have to walk around like you're playing medical dress up. You shook hands when you met someone or making a bet. You hugged your son's best friend when he made honor roll. You shook hands when you met someone for the first time, just what you did. You went to church. Maybe you even planned a fun summer getaway. You were making decent money. But 6 weeks after most of us lost a lot of these freedoms, this is where things stand in our most populous state. Well, folks there seem to have had enough of the lockdown. I'm talking California. Their numbers, well, this is where they are. They've lost 1,776 of their citizens to COVID. In a state of 40 million, that's nearly 45 people per million. Now, compared to 1,145 per million in New York, think of that differential. That's reported 22,500 deaths, by the way, in New York, despite having half the population of the Golden State. Now, you talk about deaths and it gets very sterile and like it doesn't mean anything. Of course, every death is tragic. Every life is irreplaceable. That goes without saying. But California, by comparison to a lot of other states, especially New Jersey, New York, is doing far better with about 1/20 of the COVID deaths of the Empire State. Again, people are seeing this. They're not dumb. The data doesn't lie. The data is what the data is. So this is what the beaches looked like in California this weekend. Well, Governor Newsom was some kind of unhappy.
The images we saw over the weekend, the images down in Orange County and Ventura County on our beaches. Those images are an example of what not to see, people, what not to do, if we're going to make the meaningful progress that we've made in the last few weeks extend into the next number of weeks.
Well, you're getting the sense that a lot of people are just starting to tune him and a lot of other blue state politicians out as well. Well, there were protests in Las Vegas. A massive caravan of people showed up on the Strip there. And with the sun shining, cabin fever hitting, more and more Americans just want to get on with their lives. They want to do it safely, but they have to get on with their lives. Of course, the media, they're there lying in wait. You get the sense that some might be ghoulishly watching to see if states like Georgia, remember, Georgia opened first, whether they show a major uptick in hospitalizations due to COVID. But as one Georgia barber shop owner told us on Friday, it's a matter of his survival as well.
I had no income for the last 2 months. I own 3 barbershops, I also cut hair myself, and us being out of work is no money coming in at all. So my question to the people out there, what should we do? Should we just just sit back and just wait for the government to bail us out? Or take advantage of the opportunity that we have and be as safe as possible and still, make as much money as we can and just play it safe.
Meanwhile, remember pre-COVID when this was a story?
The flu's already widespread in 5 states, and last year at this point it wasn't widespread anywhere.
The number of flu cases that we're detecting is much higher than we would expect to see at this point in time in any average year.
You see all that red? I mean, how could you not? That should be a red flag about just how bad this year's flu season has gotten.
And back in early January, before he became a global superstar, Dr. Anthony Fauci told CNN that this flu season was on track to be as severe as the 2017-2018 season, which was the deadliest in more than 4 decades. He said the initial indicators indicate it's not going to be a good season. This is going to be a bad season. But after those initial warnings, the story seemed to kind of go away. This despite the fact that we know that at least 169 children have died this flu season. That's only second to the 188 who died during that 2017-2018 season. At least 3 children have died due to COVID. Now look at these graphs from early this year. This is some of the map there. Week after week, the mortality numbers in influenza pneumonia, they call it P&I, were climbing. Despite all this, though, civilization didn't grind to a halt. Schools didn't close. We didn't even talk about it. Now, H1N1, the swine flu, was particularly vicious this year, whereas the B strain hit the young hardest. Now, look at this graph of just how bad the flu season was. Look at where it went up. You can see in the graph that red as it goes up, and it goes up toward, the end of of week 16, which is in April. But it actually went up to epidemic levels a little bit over that white line before you would imagine those COVID deaths were actually counted. It was a nasty season. So it qualified as a national epidemic week after week, or close to it. Now, COVID is not the flu. We're not saying that. It's a lot more contagious, and it's new. It hits the old hardest, young, relatively unscathed by it, relatively. And according to researchers, there are as many as 33 mutations to COVID-19. Yet the COVID mortality rate, we now know, because now we have the data, is a fraction of what a lot of the professionals, the experts, told us it would be. Well, it's inconvenient truths like that that led doctors Erickson and Masihi, who join us in moments, to produce a video calling for California to be reopened.
0.03 chance of dying from COVID in the state of California. Does that necessitate sheltering in place? Does that necessitate shutting down medical systems? Does that necessitate people being out of work? When you're a little child crawling on the ground, putting stuff in your mouth, viruses and bacteria come in, you form an antigen-antibody complex. This is how your immune system is built. You don't take a small child, put them in bubble wrap in a room and say, go have a healthy immune system.
They also say they're hearing from doctors discussing the possibility that there is a confluence of deaths being reported.
When someone dies in this country right now, they're not talking about the high blood pressure, the diabetes, the stroke. They say, did they die from COVID? We've been to hundreds of autopsies. You don't talk about one thing. You talk about comorbidities. ER doctors now, my friends that I talk to say, it's interesting. When I'm writing up my death report, I'm being pressured to add COVID. Why is that?
And then they came to this conclusion.
Something else is going on here. This is not about science, and it's not even about COVID. When they use the word safe, if you listen to the word safe, that's about controlling you.
Well, big science, the medical establishment, whatever you want to call it, is already coming after them since their videos have gone, sorry for the pun, viral. Those are my thoughts at the end of day 42, America in shutdown.